What happened here today was an ongoing theatrics to continue the partisanship about relitigating an election that is over.
Nevada Democrat Steven Horsford frustrated by last week's hearings on the IRS targeting of conservative groups. While the congressman admits there was likely wrongdoing, he says those holding these hearings have lost sight of their intended purpose. Congressman Horsford joins us now live. Sir, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Shannon. Good to be on.
Okay, so there are multiple investigations going on with the IRS situation still. As far as we know, those aren't closed yet. How do you think it is, what is the best way at this point for people to get answers and for these victims who say they haven't been interviewed by the authorities to get their stories out there other than this kind of hearing?
Well, I went to the hearing as a member of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee to listen, to hear the concerns of those witnesses. But unfortunately, the chairman of the subcommittee, Mr. Jordan, as the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Issa, have done in previous hearings, have used it more for grandstanding than really getting to the facts of the matter so that we can then work together to try to address the issue going forward. I have expressed concern about the fact that Tea Party groups, Occupy groups, progressive groups were singled out and reviewed for additional screening for tax-exempt status, just like the NAACP was under the Bush administration. And so I think there should be some consideration given to the concerns, but I don't think that the committee should jump to a conclusion or try to indicate there is a conspiracy or to point the finger at the president or the White House when there's no evidence to support those claims.
Okay, so let's just talk some hard numbers here found by the committee. More than 100 conservative groups were for extensive questioning, for in-depth questions about their donors, about their relationships with any candidates, those kinds of things. 7 progressive groups were targeted. All 7 of those were approved for tax-exempt status. It's less than 50% of the conservative groups that ever made it through the gauntlet. Some of them just withdrew and gave up waiting after 2 or 3 years. So just on numbers alone and hard data, does that not give the impression that conservative groups were targeted in a different way than, say, progressive groups?
Well, the full context of those numbers are that there were actually some 200,000 applicants in a 2-year period from 2010 to 2012 for tax-exempt status. In 1 year alone, there were some 73,000 applications. 22,000 were not approved based on the fact that they didn't meet the requirements of tax-exempt status. And out of that number, only 300 were put in this category of be on the lookout. So again, when you look at the full context, particularly after the Citizens United decision that opened the floodgate to these types of organizations seeking this tax-exempt status, it begs the question, how much targeting was there really? And we still haven't gotten the answers to those questions.
All right, so just so we're on the record, none of the progressive groups were stopped. They all got their tax-exempt status. Many conservative groups still waiting. Now, one of those was Catherine Engelbrecht, who testified, and you had a chance to question her this week, a small business owner, a conservative group that she started up. She said in 20 years of doing small business, never had any trouble with any federal agency, but after she got involved with this and was singled out by the IRS and tried to push back, she said her business was visited by the ATF, by OSHA, by the FBI, and that she's been subjected to multiple IRS audits since then. Is that too much of a coincidence for you?
Well, first, I can't make a determination about all the actions of the IRS and some 200,000 applications based on one person's experience. I listened to Ms. Catherine's testimony, and I do think that there were some concerns, particularly around the number of questions that the IRS review person were asking her. But there appeared to be some questions around whether or not her organization was engaged in more political activity than the law or the regulation allows. And let me make this point. We can address this whole problem if my colleagues on the other side would work with us and the administration to bring the federal regulation in compliance with federal law. that says that only tax-exempt status should be given to organizations that are created for the exclusive purpose of social welfare. And with this ambiguity, with the regulation, that's what's created a lot of these problems to begin with. I respect the concerns of Ms. Catherine and others who have brought their issues forward. I will continue to listen to them, but I'm looking to address the overall issues, and that is compliance with the federal standard.
Congressman, we thank you very much for your time today. We know the issue about those new rules that may come with 501c4s are going to spark a whole lot more debate, and we could do a whole other segment on that, but we'll talk more about that. And, sir, we thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Shannon. Good to be on your show.